So here we go, Le Mans Ultimate V1.0 is finally here. It's no longer in early access, and there's a pretty big update to go with that V1.0 label, including new cars along with other improvements made to the game. However, what we're going to specifically look at in this video is something we've covered quite a lot in recent weeks on this channel, and that is the GT3s, because there's been another new tyre update. And yeah, just to be clear, I've not had any involvement in the development of this update. When it comes to all the other stuff, you know, the new cars like the Valkyrie or the Mercedes GT3, I'll likely be live streaming it right now on either my YouTube or my Twitch as of 10 AM on 21st of July 2025. So yeah, go and check out the live streams if you want to go and see my first impressions on everything else. But yeah, I'm very interested to give this new GT3 tyre update a crack. So let's give it a go. Right, so we're heading to our usual stomping ground of Spa-Francorchamps in the McLaren, and you can see I'm running a 2025 livery, so a brand new livery, one of many new liveries. I've got tyre warmers turned on, just to make life a little bit easier for myself. And yeah, Spa itself's had a few updates, so I guess one of the big ones would be the corner section we're looking at right now, Le Com. The left-hand apex curb has been reduced in size, so it should be easier to run over that and gain a bit more time going over that curb, along with a few other updates. Obviously, you can see the whole menus and the setup menus is completely different, probably better now than it was before, a bit simpler, a bit easier to understand. But you've also got the McLaren, and apparently the McLaren's had some interior updates. So, as always in these patches, there are a lot of small updates, which... yeah, overall they all went up, didn't they, to a big change. So yeah, as we know, in the last tyre update on Le Mans Ultimate with the GT3s, they really went from one extreme to another. They went from a tyre model that relied on the driver heavily leaning and relying on abusing slip angles to unlock the lap time, to a tyre model that was really harsh. And yeah, if you got to the limit of grip, the way the grip dropped off over the limit was just really brutal. And yeah, because it was such a big swing from one characteristic to another, I think it just caught a lot of people out, and it just surprised a lot of people. And yeah, overall, I'd say it was definitely less enjoyable to drive, as it was just more cutthroat, basically. And yeah, these simulators, all of them, you know, Le Mans Ultimate, iRace, or whatever, they are obviously chasing realism and trying to make that one-to-one, but the driving experience needs to be enjoyable as well. Because, I mean, most people, you know, a lot of you guys watching won't have that much time to spend on the sim. You know, life gets in the way, jobs, you know, it's only sim race. It's only a hobby for most people at the end of the day. Not everyone's a sad, sweaty bastard like me who can spend hours and hours getting the best settings, figuring out the best way to drive that sim. So yeah, it does pose a good question. What is more important, realism or enjoyment? Let me know what you guys think about that question in the comments below. I mean, obviously the ideal scenario is you can have both. And, you know, in real life, real cars are really enjoyable to drive. So it is possible to do both, but I guess it's just quite hard, especially in, you know, Le Mans Ultimate's first year of development. But, I mean, yeah, we'll see as the video goes on. They are definitely getting there with it. Anyway, let's talk about what's actually changed in this update. So what it actually says in the patch notes is... LMGT3 tyre tweaks with heating/cooling improvements, minor grip changes with temp and lower exponent to thermal deg. In other words, the thermal drop-off has been decreased, and tyre temperatures have been refined as well a little bit, so a few small, subtle changes. And yeah, with all of this in mind, I think one thing we can expect is the tyres should have less drop-off over a longer stint, so race stints in theory, should be a little bit easier now, as the tyres will have a bit more life in them by the time you get to the end. But yeah, it's definitely worth saying this update, it's not as big a swing as the previous update, so it's not going to be as different. The general gist of it is they're going slightly back in the direction they came from, hopefully to try and find a nice middle ground between what they recently updated it to in Update 5, and then obviously the sliding, drifting update of Update 4, the way it was way back when. But yeah, if I go back to the garage quick, I have been informed from people in the know, people who know what they're talking about, that there's no massive updates required in the setups to cater for this update. So yeah, the setups you've been running recently in Update 5 should be pretty decent out of the box. Because if you all remember in the last update, the old setups from the previous patch were basically useless. They were like borderline undrivable. Apparently all the cars will feel like they will all have more rear grip relative to front grip. And so with that in mind, you should be able to, in theory, go a little bit more aggressive with the setups. In other words, you could stiffen the rear suspension, go up on the rear roll bar. You could soften the front suspension, even though we're already on detached here, but you know what I mean? You could take some wing off. You could reduce the TC. That sort of stuff you should be able to get away with now because, as I say, you've got it should feel like you've got more rear grip relative to front grip. So you're going to have a stronger rear end. So you should be able to exploit that a little bit in the setup. But yeah, for today, I'm just going to run a setup that was inspired by one of the Go setups, but I've made a few tweaks to suit myself, and I'll quickly run through it. So that's the powertrain, wheels and brakes, suspension, dampers, and then chassis and aero. So it's quite high wing, but the suspension I think is quite aggressive, so it sort of counteracts that. It's really nice to Sector 2. Yeah, let's quickly get out on track and talk about something else, because what also has been tweaked in this update is the track grip and the track state. And yeah, the reason I'm telling you this in this video is because obviously the track grip has quite a sizable impact on the feeling and the feedback you get from the car. The change itself is that the window between the fully green track and a fully rubbered in track, in other words, a saturated grip track, as they call it in this game, that window now is a lot narrower. So basically, a green track now has slightly more grip than it did before, which again should make certain servers that have certain conditions a little bit less daunting, a little bit less tricky, a little bit less cutthroat. And yeah, that combined with this new Tyre update, I think it will just make the game a bit more accessible for a lot of people. But yeah, what do I think of this update? Well, I guess a good way to explain the difference between the previous patch and this patch would be this. The setup I'm running on right now, which I just showed you, on the previous update, in exactly the same conditions as this track, it was really, really edgy, really loose. Lots of snaps, oversteer moments, instability on entries. I mean, to be honest, the instability and the oversteer got worse the faster I was going. So in the high-speed corners, it was quite bad. Your Stabilo 2s, Blanchimont was really bad. Those sorts of corners, even Eau Rouge to an extent as well. Whereas now, I simply loaded onto the new patch with the same setup, same conditions, same car, same track, and it now feels like a very stable setup. For me, that just showed, the little swing that this update, this patch has had, is actually quite a lot, because it's turned a very loose, borderline on the edge setup to a very stable setup. So yeah, all of the stated changes that we've spoken about in this video, and that MSG have claimed to made, they've definitely worked. I can definitely feel there's quite a big difference in the feeling I'm getting behind this car. It feels like the rear tyres especially don't give up as easily, and when you get to the limit of grip, you can play with the car a little bit more than you could before. Before, you got to the limit, and if you went over it, bang, you spin, you're in the wall. Whereas now, you can have a little bit more. You have a little bit more leeway. Not as much as Update 4. You can't take the piss with it, but still, it's a bit more intuitive, a bit more forgiving, a bit more enjoyable. And yeah, on the topic of being able to go too far with it, I mean, on this update, I did spend half an hour or maybe an hour just playing around with the setup, trying to see how aggressive I could push it. If you go too far with it, if you take the piss with the setup, you will suffer the same fate as you did before in Update 5. The rear will give up, and it will go on you, naturally so. I mean, even in a real car, if you just put minimum wing on and just drove like a maniac, you're gonna go round. But let me show you. I mean, I'll put it down to 4 wing, right?
Locking enabled.
I'll put it to 4 wing, and no doubt, if we approach Eau Rouge on the outlap, even with tyre warmers, and try to go flat out, and just if I'm really aggressive with the steering here, in the mid corner, the rear's going to go on me, no doubt. So yeah, it's not like Update 4 where you can just do anything and pretty much get away with it. See, it's going to still bite you if you don't respect the game, but I feel like the lead up until that point is further down the road, so you have to really go that extra mile to make it spin on you and then crash. Whereas before, it was probably a bit too easy in Update 5 to get to that point. But yeah, let's go back to 9-wing quickly, because this setup's not ready for a lower downforce config. But yeah, it just feels like there's just a bit more rear grip, really. That's like the initial feeling I had when I first drove it. Which, yeah, definitely feels a bit more natural, a bit more intuitive. I'm guessing lap times will be slightly quicker than before as a result, especially once the setup shops and everyone figures out just how aggressive you can go with these setups, with, you know, to cater for this new tyre update. As always, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on if people figure out any weird exploits. I mean, maybe the fact that it is more forgiving now will lean into potential exploits with, you know, the way you drive it, the way you can set up the car. Maybe that will be a thing. But yeah, only time will tell on that, really. Right, as always, let me do a push lap for you guys, just to show you how it all looks and behaves on the limit. So, as I say, you can just play with it a bit more on the limit now, and you'll see that, hopefully, in Sector 2. But into Turn 1... can definitely be quite aggressive with the pedals. Smashing the brake. Then straight on power. Eau Rouge. A little bit of a wobble, but it was flat, which is the main thing. As I say, the setup's not perfect, but I'm sure setups will be refined in the coming weeks. Sector 2 then. Can run over this curb a bit more at Lacombe. Probably left a little bit of time there on the exit of Lacombe. So I think you can definitely see me being able to play with it a bit more on the limit. A bit of understeer and poo on there, but you see it rotating in the mid part. Into Piff Paff. Into the Stavelos. Second. Pick up the power. Straighten the wheel. Stabilo 2 should be comfortably flat. You can just see it sort of fighting against me, but I have no concerns that it's going to spin or anything like I probably did in Update 5. I always felt like it could just come round on me at any moment, even in Blanchimont with this setup. Honestly, Blanchimont was barely flat with this setup in Update 5. Decent chicane. Full push to the line then. What we're going to do? 219.5. So, no doubt, when everyone figures these out, figures out the setups, goes a bit more aggressive with the setups, actually drives a near perfect lap, will be in the 17s probably. High 17s, I'd imagine. So, yeah, still a little bit off, but I've just jumped on. It's early in the morning. A 219.5. I'll take that. So yeah, the update overall then, I think it's definitely less daunting, more accessible, a bit more plug and play, a little bit more enjoyable as well. And I'd definitely say it's a little step closer to realism. So, of course, it's not perfect, but I think it's great that Motorsport Games listened to the community and reacted so quickly to get the GT3s tweaked, as the GT3s now are so popular. So yeah, fair play to them on that. When you guys try the update, come back to the video, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of it. And as always, thank you for watching the video. Give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I will catch you all next time.